Japan rebuilt its coastline with a wall so long it changed the map. Not a breakwater, not a seawall around one port, an entire defensive system. Nearly 400 kilometers of concrete, steel, rock, floodgates and armored slopes stretch across Japan's northeast coast. Some sections rise higher than a four-story building, some disappear into mountains, some cut straight across river mouths, and some are so tall that people who spent their whole lives facing the sea can no longer see it from their own homes. That sounds extreme. Until you understand what hit Japan in 2011. On March 11th, the ground off the coast of Honshu ruptured in one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded, a magnitude 9.1, the largest ever measured in Japan. Within about 30 minutes, the tsunami reached the coast. In some places, it climbed to nearly 40 meters. It didn't arrive like the kind of wave people imagine. It arrived like elevation itself had started moving. Black water carrying houses, cars, boats, fuel tanks, bridges and entire neighborhoods. More than 18,000 people were killed or went missing. Over 123,000 homes were destroyed. And 98% of that destruction came from the tsunami, not the shaking. That is the event this wall was built to answer. But here's the part most people get wrong. Japan didn't build this wall because it believed concrete could defeat the ocean. Japan built it because the old logic failed. Before 2011, the coast was already defended. About 300 kilometers of coastal dikes and seawalls had already been built across the hardest-hit region. Some were 10 meters high. People had warning systems, ports had breakwaters, towns had floodgates. And still, in a single day, around 190 kilometers of those coastal dikes were destroyed or badly damaged. That failure changed everything. Because the old walls did not mostly fail the way people expect. Many weren't smashed flat from the front, they were overtopped. Water poured over the crest, attacked the landward side, scoured the soil behind the wall, and turned the defense into its own weakness. That's the engineering lesson that rewrote Japan's coast. The real battle wasn't just stopping water from coming in, it was surviving what happened after the water went over. From a distance, the new wall just looks like a giant grey barrier. Up close, it's a layered machine designed around one brutal idea. If the tsunami is too big to stop, the structure must still stay alive long enough to buy time. Not forever, not perfectly, just long enough. After 2011, Japan moved toward a two-level strategy. For frequent tsunamis, the wall protects land, homes, roads and industry. For the largest possible tsunamis, the goal is different. Not total protection. Survival. Delay the water. Reduce the force. Give people minutes. Force evacuation, not complacency. That's why this wall is not really one wall. It's a system. The seawall is only the visible part. Behind it are evacuation routes, raised roads, automated floodgates, hills built for escape, remote-operated barriers, and towns moved to higher ground. And the scale is staggering. Across 6 prefectures, reconstruction projects were planned at 621 coastal locations. By March 2022, about 95% were complete. Hundreds of sites, hundreds of geologies, hundreds of bay shapes, hundreds of failure scenarios. No single wall height works for all of that. One bay might get a lower wall because it's sheltered. Another might get a 12.5-meter wall because it faces directly into incoming energy. Another might rise to 14.5 meters because the topography behind it leaves no second chance. Before engineers can even pour concrete, they have to answer a harder question. What exactly is this wall standing on? Soft marine clay, loose sand, rock? Each answer changes the foundation. This is why modern sections are often hybrid structures, a seaward face to meet the wave, a wide embankment behind it, drainage inside, reinforced covering on top. protected toes below. The geometry itself is part of the defense. And here's the paradox. The stronger wall isn't always the one that looks more massive. Sometimes the stronger wall is the one that fails more slowly. That sounds wrong. Until you see what happened at Kamaishi. It had one of the most famous tsunami breakwaters in the world, built over decades at enormous cost. In 2011, it was overwhelmed. To many, that looked like proof this was all pointless. But later analysis found the breakwater still delayed the first wave by about 6 minutes and reduced its height significantly. 6 minutes doesn't sound dramatic, until those 6 minutes are the difference between reaching high ground and not. A wall doesn't have to be perfect to matter, it just has to change the clock. And that's the most controversial part of all, because these walls are not only engineering, they're psychology. They protect towns, they also divide them. Fishermen said the coast no longer felt like the coast. Some communities argued that moving people uphill made more sense than billion-dollar concrete. Others feared something even more dangerous, that a taller wall might make people hesitate. And hesitation is exactly what kills during a tsunami. One study cited in the public debate found that seawalls could slow evacuation behavior because people assume they still have time. That's why officials kept repeating the same message after 2011. Do not trust the wall with your life. Run anyway, always. Some automated floodgates exposed another fatal weakness, manual closure. In the disaster, some responders died trying to shut gates by hand, so the redesigned coast had to protect operators too. The infrastructure itself had to become survivable. The wall looks like a statement of confidence. It's actually a confession of limits. Japan isn't saying, we can stop any tsunami. Japan is saying, we know we cannot. So the defense has to buy time, absorb punishment, and keep functioning after it's overtopped. That shows up in details most people never notice. The toe at the back of the wall matters because scour starts there. The landward face matters because collapse often begins after the wave has already crossed the top. The gate motors matter because power can fail, and still, after all that engineering, the final lesson isn't comforting. The world's most tsunami-prepared country still lost thousands of people in 2011. If a nation with warnings, drills, breakwaters, and decades of experience could still be overwhelmed, the real lesson isn't that the ocean is unbeatable. It's that preparedness has to be layered. Physical defenses help, warnings help, education helps, evacuation culture helps. But none of them alone is enough. That's the meaning of this 400-kilometer wall. It's not proof that Japan beat the sea. It's proof that Japan studied exactly how it was beaten and rebuilt its coast around those failures. Today, people walk on these walls, cycle on them, live in towns raised above the old floodlines. Children grow up beside infrastructure built from the memory of a day they never saw. The wall is both a scar and a manual. It remembers the dead, it teaches the living, and it says something brutally honest in concrete. When the next tsunami comes, this barrier may not save you, but it may slow the water, it may weaken the blow, it may hold just a little longer than the last one, and in tsunami engineering, a little longer can be everything.